Jerusalem, 33 AD. The sun hadn't even peeked over the horizon yet, and the whole city was still knocked out cold from the Sabbath. The streets, dead silent, not a soul stirring. Just the distant bleating of sheep and the cool morning breeze carrying the smell of olive groves through the ancient stone alleys. Now picture this. 3 women are making their way through those narrow streets, clutching jars of expensive burial spices. Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, and Salome. Their hearts are heavy as lead, their eyes puffy from crying all weekend. They're heading to a tomb carved right into the rock outside the city walls. You ever had to say goodbye to someone you thought was going to change everything? That's exactly where these ladies were at. The thing is, they're worried sick about something pretty practical. See, back in those days, tombs weren't like our cemeteries today. Rich folks would carve out caves in the limestone hillsides, and they'd seal the entrance with a massive stone disc. I'm talking about a boulder so huge it'd take several grown men to budge it. And these women? They're asking each other, who's going to roll away that stone for us? Makes sense, right? They hadn't exactly thought this through. But here's where it gets wild. As they're getting closer to the garden where the tomb is located, the sky's starting to lighten up just a smidge. That pre-dawn glow, you know? And suddenly the ground starts shaking. Not like a little tremor. We're talking about a full-on earthquake that nearly knocks them off their feet. Can you imagine? Your heart would be pounding like crazy, wouldn't it? The Roman guards stationed at the tomb. They're not having a good time either. These are tough guys, trained soldiers who've seen combat, who've kept order in one of the most rebellious provinces in the empire. But when they see what happens next, they freeze up like statues. An angel, bright as lightning, dressed in white that practically burns your eyes, comes down and just rolls that massive stone away like it's a pebble. Then he sits on it. Just sits there, calm as can be. The guards, they pass out cold, flat on the ground. Wouldn't you? The women approach slowly, their hands shaking so bad they nearly drop those spice jars. They're expecting to find a body wrapped in linen cloths, ready to anoint it properly according to their customs. Instead, the tomb is empty. Completely empty. Just the burial cloths lying there, neatly folded. The face cloth that had covered his head. Folded separately, placed to the side, everything orderly, everything intentional. Now the angel speaks. His voice is gentle, but carries this authority that makes your bones vibrate. Don't be afraid, he says. I know you're looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He's not here. He has risen, just like he said he would. What do you make of that? 1 minute you're grieving, the next you're hearing the impossible. The women's minds are racing. They'd watched him take his last breath just 3 days ago. They'd seen the Roman soldier confirm it. They'd watched Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus wrap the body with 75 pounds of myrrh and aloes. They'd seen the stone sealed, the guards posted. There was no way anyone could have stolen the body. Zero chance. But here's the thing about Jerusalem at that time. The city was packed tighter than sardines in a can because of Passover. Pilgrims from all over the known world were crammed into every available space. The Roman garrison was on high alert. The Jewish religious authorities had their own temple police watching everything. If you wanted to stage some kind of hoax, this would literally be the worst possible time and place to try it. The angel continues, "Go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead." And get this, he's going ahead of you to Galilee. That's where you'll see him. The women don't need to be told twice. They take off running, and let me tell you, running in those long robes on those uneven stone paths. Not easy, but they're doing it anyway. Their sandals slapping against the rock, their breath coming in gasps, torn between fear and the most incredible joy they've ever felt. Mary Magdalene, she's the fastest. She reaches Peter and John first, bursting through the door, barely able to get the words out. "They've taken the Lord out of the tomb," she pants, "and we don't know where they've put him." Now put yourself in Peter's shoes for a second. This is the guy who denied even knowing Jesus 3 times just days ago. He's been beating himself up something fierce. And now this. Peter and John bolt from that house like their lives depend on it. John's younger, faster. He gets to the tomb first, but he stops at the entrance, peering in, seeing those linen cloths but not going inside. Peter, true to form, doesn't hesitate. He charges right in, examining everything. The cloths are there, but they're not unwrapped like someone hurriedly removed them. They're collapsed, like the body just passed through them. The face cloth, folded with precision. If this was a grave robbery, would thieves really stop to fold the laundry? Come on, that doesn't add up, does it? John finally steps inside and sees it for himself, and the text says he saw and believed. Something about the scene clicked for him right then and there. All those cryptic things Jesus had said about rising on the third day suddenly made sense. Meanwhile, back in the garden, Mary Magdalene has returned and she's standing outside the tomb, crying her eyes out. She bends down to look inside one more time, and now there are two angels sitting where the body had been. One at the head and one at the feet. They ask her, "Woman, why are you crying?" She tells them someone's taken her Lord away. Then she turns around and sees a man standing there. She figures he's the gardener. Makes sense, right? They're in a garden, it's early morning. Who else would be out here? The man asks her the same question. "Who are you looking for?" She's so desperate she just blurts out, "Sir, if you've carried him away, just tell me where you put him and I'll go get him." Never mind that she couldn't possibly carry a grown man's body by herself. Grief doesn't think logically. Then the man says just one word, her name, Mary, and instantly she knows. She recognizes his voice. It's him. It's actually him. She gasps, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Can you even wrap your head around what that moment must have felt like? Now let's talk about what's happening in the rest of Jerusalem while all this is going down. The chief priests and Pharisees are probably sleeping in, recovering from the intense Passover celebrations. They think they've put this whole Jesus problem to bed. They've convinced themselves that executing him was necessary to keep the peace, to prevent Rome from cracking down on them even harder. They've got guards at the tomb just to make sure his followers don't pull some stunt and claim he rose from the dead. But those guards, they're about to have the worst day of their careers. When they finally come to and get their bearings, they rush to the chief priests with their report. "You're not going to believe this, but there was an earthquake, and an angel, and the tomb's empty, and..." The priests are sweating bullets now. This is their worst nightmare. So what do? They come up with a cover story. They give the soldiers a fat pile of silver and tell them to say the disciples came at night and stole the body while they were asleep. Think about that logic for a second, would you? If you were asleep, how would you know who stole it? And what kind of soldiers would admit to falling asleep on duty? That was a death sentence in the Roman army. But the priests promise to keep them safe if the governor hears about it. The whole thing stinks to high heaven, doesn't it? Over the next several hours and days, Jesus appears to more and more people. He shows up to the women on their way back from the tomb. He walks with 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus for 7 miles, explaining the scriptures to them, and they don't recognize him until he breaks bread with them. He appears to Peter privately, then to all the disciples together, except Thomas, who wasn't there and refuses to believe until he sees for himself. A week later, Jesus shows up again when Thomas is present. He tells Thomas to touch the wounds in his hands and side. Thomas doesn't need to. He just falls to his knees and says, "My Lord and my God." Jesus tells him, "You believe because you've seen me. Blessed are those who haven't seen and yet believe." Hits different, doesn't it? Here's what really gets me about this whole thing. These disciples, they were nobodies. Fishermen, tax collectors, regular working class folks. They had everything to lose and nothing to gain by making this up. After Jesus was arrested, they scattered like frightened rabbits. Peter denied him. Thomas doubted. They were hiding behind locked doors, terrified the authorities would come for them next. But something happened that transformed them completely. Within weeks, they're out in the streets, proclaiming this resurrection message fearlessly. They're getting arrested, beaten, threatened. And not one of them recants. Not one says, okay, we made it up. People don't go to their graves defending a lie, especially when there's no earthly benefit. What do you think could cause that kind of transformation? The empty tomb in Jerusalem that morning changed everything. It split history in 2. It took a movement that should have died with its leader and turned it into something that spread across the entire known world within a few generations. Fishermen became fearless preachers. Doubters became martyrs. Women became the first witnesses, which is huge because in that culture, women's testimony wasn't even considered valid in court. If you were making this story up, You'd never have women as your first witnesses. That detail right there tells you something real went down. That morning in Jerusalem, as the sun finally rose over the Kidron Valley, everything changed. The greatest comeback in history, the ultimate plot twist, an empty tomb that echoes through the centuries, asking every generation the same question. What are you going to do with this? So what do you think? Could a lie survive 2,000 years of scrutiny, persecution, and investigation? Or did something genuinely impossible happen in that garden tomb at dawn?